I want to have a conversation about family happiness and the correlation between the income that you bring in each and every year and how that relationship can affect dynamics on every level of your family. According to my friends over at Forbes, they report for 80% of the American public today, happiness continues to rise when they make an income past $7,500. However, for an unhappy minority, their unhappiness diminished as they made more money, up to approximately $100,000. Those numbers were about the same as those people making $7,500. However, it's important to note that those numbers on a yearly basis are adjusted for inflation. This is food for thought and information for my friend Travis Parry to consider. He's a #1 best-selling author of the book Achieving Balance, Marry and Grow Rich. Dr. Parry has also earned a master's in psychology and a PhD in family relations to better understand finances from a psychological and family perspective. He's the founder of the Make Time Institute and has helped thousands of business owners and couples in all 50 states to achieve their financial goals. He's an international speaker and host of the podcast entitled Balanced Growth. However, he says his most cherished accomplishment is being married to his wife of 22 years and father to their amazing 8 children. And Dr. Parry joined me this week to talk about business growth, family relations, and his ascent to helping families realize their own version of personal, family, and financial prosperity. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Travis, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm super excited to talk about your life journey and business, family, and everything in between, my friend. So great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here, my friend.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Travis, I know that part of your life work is studying the relationship between family balance and business success, my friend. So what do you think is the key to striking the right balance between the two? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
So I think balance gets a bad rap lately. A lot of people are talking work-life balance is old hat. It's the incorrect definition. We talk about harmony and integration, but really studying from a psychological perspective over the last 15 so years, I found that balance is actually making the time and space to be able to work on and complete goals in your highest areas of life. So it's making time for your highest priorities is how I put it. And the reason why that can be so challenging for business owners is we get into business to have freedom. We get into business for time freedom, for financial freedom, and just freedom in general. But we find ourselves, if we don't set the business up correctly, we find ourselves sort of being a slave to it. And what I mean by that is that, Michael Gerber, the author of The E-Myth Revisited, talks about how we can become our own worst boss. And, kind of a slave driver, the jerk that you have to report to because you've not created a business. You've created a job and you're your own boss. So it's really difficult as business owners to sometimes separate and be able to take a step back and say, hold on, here's my boundary. This is what I've said. This is what I'm going to do, and then go and do it, especially during the startup phases and even growth phases of the business. It's difficult to just take a minute and say, no, I've got to make time and space for these more important priorities like my health, my relationship with my spouse, my relationship with God, my family. But the problem with that is if we don't make time for those things, we feel really stressed internally. We might not show it. We may have a lot of money. We may have a successful business. We may have a lot of friends in the workplace, but we're overweight. We are not connecting with our family the way we should. We maybe have some wedges in our relationship with our spouse. We're not reading the scriptures as much as we'd like to be or attending church. And that starts to weigh on us over time to a point where it becomes very apparent that we're a workaholic.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I know that in your book, my friend, I know that you're the author of Achieving Balance, Marry and Grow Rich, my friend. And I know that it was important to you to explore these issues in the book. And I also know that you have a master's degree in psychology and a PhD in family relations because it was important for you to understand the relationship between the two, my friend. So tell me about the book and why this particular line of work is so fascinating to you, my friend. I'm curious.
For me, when my father passed away, he was age 49. He was 2 weeks shy of 50th birthday. I was a financial advisor at the time, and I, felt a great sense of urgency to figure out my own health, my own, maybe my own balance, to try and not only figure out how I could live longer. My genetics, 50% come from my father, 50% from my mother, so I was worried about, am I going to die early? And this is past all the grieving and the coping with and helping my mom realign her life and her new reality. I helped her for several years to kind of recalibrate. But once I kind of took a step back from all of that, I realized that my own priorities, the things that were most important in my life, weren't really being addressed. I was stuck in the workaholic trap. I was a workaholic. Not for the reasons of wanting to be overly wealthy or for the fame of the world, but because I was trying to provide for my family, a growing family of then 5 of us, and a mortgage and all the things that we needed, and a minivan, those kind things to survive. I was finding myself working too much, working more, emotionally invested, drained when I came home, not really living the life that I thought I'd be living. Now, a lot of people say, well, you're just naive and you've never started a business before and blah, blah, blah. I've now interviewed over 1,600 business owners about this concept. And in my first book, Achieving Balance, I talk about how to create systems. Systems are the solutions to getting those boundaries right and making time for things that are super important in your life. And one of the best systems out there is an ideal calendar. So I changed my life. I looked at my time management. I started to put things on the calendar that were really, really important. And whether I hit my business goals or not, my time with my kids, it's fleeting, and they grow up and then they leave, right? And you hope they come back, but you have to have those relationships with them. And I realized that when losing my father I was 25, at a younger age than I expected, It really was the kick in the pants that I needed to make major life changes. Now, book number 2, Marry and Grow Rich, I finished my master's degree and I wrote this book, Achieving Balance, which is a #1 bestseller. You can see it back on the wall if you're watching the video. And that was a fantastic work. But I also found that most people who had an ideal calendar, who managed their time really well, they missed a huge, huge piece. And that was accountability, somebody that could help them constantly. So I started coaching people and I started to help them. And I realized, though, it was short term because I would follow up 6 months, 9 months, a year, and find that they had kind of already fallen off the wagon again. They got into old habits. So I really started to scratch my head and wonder, how does this work long term? What's the solution? And I interviewed more business owners, and I found out that the key is actually their spouse. That if the two of them were on the same page financially, they would actually be able to have long-term balance while they are growing their business. So I started to write the second book, Marry and Grow Rich, which you can get at marryandgrowrichbook.com.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Thomas, you bring up an interesting point when it comes to communication with spouses when you're a business owner. And I wonder your definition of elite communication when you're a business owner and sort of immersed in that lifestyle and wanting to still be present in your family life. So tell me about the importance of elite communication and presence, and how do you think those are interconnected?
Yeah, so I decided to do a PhD in family relations so I could really, really, really understand communication, family systems, interactions, problems. In the psychology masters, we learn a lot about what motivates one, what is, how to avoid, distress, and some of the major mental health issues that are out there. I taught psychology for a long time. And as I was, again, interviewing these other business owners, I found out the ones that really had great balance had such a solid relationship, and communication was one of the biggest things that continually would show up. So I learned from a gentleman who many of you may know, Dr. John Gottman. John Gottman has incredible resources for couples. He is the world's foremost researcher on married couples and has a system and a process, and he has his own lab. He calls it the Love Lab in Washington State. Well, I learned a lot about him, and he focuses heavily on communication. And he actually focuses more on what not to do. He calls them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You can read in his work things like avoid being defensive, avoid pointing fingers, avoid shame and blame, avoid really creating these rock walls of kind of backbiting with each other that create such difficult inferences to communication here. And I'm searching for the word, so I'm sorry, but he really talks about how these major blocks in communication can really push the relationship backwards. So his focus is, let's get rid of these problems in communication that most of us have. We tend to do this when we get defensive. We tend to either snap or point fingers or run away as kind of a stress response. But these are learned behaviors. So then he focuses on what are the most important skills in communication. And one of the biggest things that we found in the research and what Gottman talks about is listening skills. Listening. Not listening to interject, not listening to make your point next, not listening to be right, but listening to truly understand the other individual. Listening to with the right spirit, even a spirit of charity and love, and putting yourself in those your spouse's shoes. When we can make those habits happen over the problematic types of communication, our communication really does change big. But I will tell you this, that's really only the tip of the iceberg. Because the biggest point of contention, what do couples actually fight about the most? It's money, 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 money. And that's kind of what brings me to start writing about, marry and grow rich. Like why this, discussion about growing rich? That can be a whole, separate episode. But the point is that when married couples are on the same page financially, and they know how to communicate it about it well, they know how to achieve their financial goals together, they're happier psychologically, they're more satisfied in their relationship, and they achieve their financial goals at much higher rates than those who don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And Travis, I know you're the founder of Make Time Institute, where you've helped thousands of individuals and business owners through all 50 states and couples as well achieve their financial goals, my friend. So tell me, what do you think are the keys to achieving financial prosperity?
Well, like I said, the first step is really to be on the same page with your spouse. And the reason why it's so important, not only can you avoid those communication problems and have a better relationship and things, but now as a business owner, you have space to think, space not to be stressed, space to create as an entrepreneur, because you're not bringing money stress into your day-to-day business. You're not making decisions based on your personal cash situation, which a lot of business owners do. They do this wrong. They make business decisions based on their personal stressors. And when you can separate the two and you don't have the stress back and forth, you don't take the business stress back home with you. It is so empowering, and it's very freeing to be able to separate those two worlds. So how does that help, couples? Well, the fact that couples can be on the same page and then begin working on their goals together is huge. As a financial advisor, a young 22-year-old financial advisor just getting started in the business, I worked with a lot of other couples, most of them are older than me. And they would have problems with their communication. They had problems with, being able to achieve their financial goals. And when I was asked to help them with a lot of, these situations, it was a struggle because I didn't have the skills. I had some of my background. I could maybe give them some pointers. But my clients, the ones that were really already on the same page and that were headed in the right direction, I saw that they were able to really make really wise decisions. This avoids a lot of power struggle in the relationship, where maybe the men mostly make investment decisions, instead of involving their spouse so that she knows what's going on in the relationship with their investments. The more that we involve each other, the more that we're on that same page, the more trust is built, the more that we can, again, less stress about the situation. And, I call this financial intimacy. The more that we share, the more that we trust, the more that we build together on the financial side of things, the better the relationship is. So while, a lot of great people like Gottman and others, Fowers, etc. There's a lot of researchers out there who study communication. Really, I focus on financial communication. I focus on financial goal achievement as a couples, because if they do that, they've already solved the biggest issue that most couples are fighting. And if they can be on the same page, then they can achieve goals in all areas of life. And that is the key to staying balanced lifelong. It's to be on the same page, not only financially, but in all areas of life, parenting, relationship, health-wise. It just avoids all the wedges. And I'm not saying you have to agree on everything. It just means that you have, to be supportive of each other and really work towards supporting each other's goals, ambitions, drives, ideals, because that's the key to a happy relationship. Now, how does this affect a business? Well, again, not only just the stress is gone, but two, if you can help your team at work, however big your team of 1, 2, or 55, doesn't matter. If your team can help you to level up by taking some of the stress off of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, so that you can be the leader, a thought leader. I talk about this in chapter 7 of my book, Marry and Grow Rich. You can be the thought leader. You can be the speaker. You can be the podcast host. You can be the author. You can be the one that is bringing these big ideas to the world. If they can cover all the other marketing, sales, fulfillment, and operations aspects of the business and help you to just focus on leadership, it's only going to allow you to 10x your growth. And now that you have, competent and on the same page financial couple at home and a competent and helpful team at work, there is no stopping the growth that your business can have at the same time while keeping that balance of time at home.
Yeah, and just out of personal curiosity, Travis, I'm also curious to ask you about workforce diversification and infusing individuals with disabilities into the workforce. As you know, Travis, I have cerebral palsy, and I travel across the country talking to business executives and those who work in inclusive employment about the importance of infusing folks with disabilities into the workforce. And I frame it as a competitive advantage for the entire organization, which helps business owners or organizational leaders sort of reduce stress, improve both profits and productivity, my friend. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on the importance of infusing folks with disabilities into the workforce and the competitive advantage they can offer an organization. What are your thoughts there?
Kevin, I would defer to you. I think you are the pro here. Obviously, you're the thought leader in this space. You're being asked to speak on stage about this. I have very limited activity hiring those with what a lot of people call as disabilities. I have a client, though, who's writing a book about his own children who he's adopted, that he calls them with super abilities. Now, I here's what I found in the research in psychology is where one person may have a learning disability or a setback, something that others we see as, well, that's not up to par. They typically overcompensate with a different type of ability, okay? And I don't think, Kevin, this ends with people who have a blue card that can pull into a parking slot. I'm saying everyone. I might have a strength that that other people don't really want to have. I love speaking on stage, for example, but I hate doing bookkeeping. Hate it. So my focus, and when I help business owners, is to focus on your strength. What are your strengths? Don't focus on your weaknesses. If you are really great at interviewing people on podcasts, that is a fantastic network tool for you, Kevin, and others who are out there. Now, I can't speak to consulting with business owners on hiring those with disabilities, but I can say this: all individuals, we all have some kind of disability or a weakness, some flaw, some issue. Maybe it's something we're born with. Maybe it's something we can't change. Maybe it is just a dislike of doing certain tasks. Like me, I hate the bookkeeping. So my focus is, as the business owner, do what you do best. I call it your work sweet spot. And I outline it in my first book, Achieving Balance. In your work sweet spot, you're not only doing the things that you enjoy the most, but they typically are what's paying you the most. Now, I'm careful because I have a process about determining what those are. It's not mutually exclusive. Those two are typically similar. There may be some exceptions, but you'll find when you work 80 to 90% in that work sweet spot, you're going to be more productive at work, period. For your employees, when you're trying to become a thought leader and leave the marketing, sales, fulfillment, and operations to others, you're going to hire people who have a great knack for sales, a great knack for marketing, a great knack for fulfillment, operations. So for me, I see bookkeeping as operations. It's not fulfillment. It's not for my clients. It's not marketing. It's not sales. It's operations. It's at the back, behind the scenes type of thing, but it has to get done. So I outsource that. I outsource the taxing, the accounting, the things that I don't really enjoy doing. Can I do it? Yes. Have I done it? Yeah, of course. But when I get to the point where I can spend more time doing the things like speaking, podcast guesting, writing books, those are the things, coaching my clients, those are the things that are most important to me. So that I kind of follow that same ideal and system, Kevin. And I believe that no matter who you hire, that they should also kind of go through a similar process of what are they good at and how can they achieve the goals, help me achieve the goals of this business. What can they do that's better? So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Travis, can I ask you about teamwork and organizational culture, and how do you think those two things are interconnected?
Culture is I wouldn't say the most important, but it is the driving force of if, your employees are going to stay and work and be productive and be a part of this team. So at home, we have a microculture of our own family. Now, as you mentioned, we have 8 children, and we have a homeschooling culture. We like to go and see. We go and travel. We've traveled across the country several times. We've been to almost all 50 states. We've been to several other countries in Europe and South America, Central America. And, what we've found is that that's our culture. We enjoy traveling. We enjoy going and seeing things versus reading out of a book, okay? At work, culture is so important to achieving the goals that you have for the workplace. If there's a toxic culture, people are going to be looking for other jobs. You're going to be spending more time hiring and interviewing and training versus actually helping, improve the marketing, improving the sales, improving the fulfillment. And so it's super important that you get the right people. In Good to Great, they talk about getting the right people on the bus and then getting them in the right position. So we talked just briefly about, your sweet spot, your work sweet spot. That's a big part of it. You may have someone in sales and it should be in marketing, someone in marketing who should be in fulfillment. I don't know. But if you really help them walk through, the steps in my first book, Achieving Balance, you'll find out what are their strengths and where should they be focused on. But I think kind of coming back to this idea that the business needs to have goals. What's their mission statement? What are their goals? What is it they want to accomplish? And then here's something that just in recent years has really been coming out, and that is, do you know what the goals of your employees are? And are those aligned? Are the goals of your employees and the goals of the business aligned? Because if they're not, it's just a matter of time, and that employee will find another place to be working. The research shows that when pay is the same, if an employee has found another position where the culture and appreciation is higher, better culture, high appreciation of what they do is more important, is higher than where they're currently working, they will leave that job. Again, when pay is same, okay? I can't speak for, obviously we have different priorities, but if pay is higher and, culture is weaker, I don't know. But I do know that people look for positions that fit them. They want to be fulfilled at work. They don't just want to punch a clock. They don't just want to, come and work for the man and go home. In this day and age, in order to keep really great employees, you have to know what their goals are. And you have to be making sure that they're in the right seats on the bus, or else they're going to be looking for a different place.
Yeah, and Travis, I'm also curious to get your perspective on the whole idea of, over the last decade, I know that you've been sharing your knowledge with entrepreneurs through books and podcasts and speaking engagements, but I'm also curious to ask you, what's the greatest lesson you think you've learned about the diversity and level of skill when it comes to business perspectives or how people operate businesses in America today. So tell me, what do you think is the greatest lesson you've learned about the diversity in business throughout your travels, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
That's a great question, Kevin. I think that in overall, like macroeconomics, we need diversity of thought. We need diversity of services. We need each other, and it's an interesting thing. I want to give a quick just example of this, and I know he's a polarizing figure, but besides politics and everything aside, Elon Musk. I talk about him in my book, Marry and Grow Rich. He's done something pretty incredible. He sold, PayPal shares and went and started some companies. One of which was he took over Tesla, and he really grew it from the ground up. That is a case study that I think all business colleges and degrees in business should really be exploring, and it probably will be exploring for years and years to come. But what Musk did is then he was able to leverage his business, leverage other businesses that he's buying and becoming the CEO of, to start other businesses like the Boring Company, like X, like SpaceX, like all these different businesses. I call it business stacking. And I found that most business owners, entrepreneurs, they're not as interested in investing in assets they can't control. So they like real estate. They like investing in other businesses. They want to have that sense of control of where things are headed. I'm not saying that they shouldn't or that they don't invest in the stock market or whatnot, but that is one thing that is really pivotal. As I give this next point, because as business owners, we tend to look at what we're doing as our family, as the business as our baby, right? Especially if we started it up. If we take it from a startup to a growth phase, quite honestly, it's like an adolescent, right? And then as the business maybe is sold or given to the next generation, maybe we see that as giving it away. Like our children are getting married and we're becoming empty nesters, or we're moving towards being less involved in the business. So as I think about that, as I go bring it back to family systems, I think this is super important, because when I watch Elon Musk and specifically with Tesla, what he did is he had a great vision. He didn't just see Tesla as this company that he was going to rescue and really bolster up. He saw it as changing the entire world. And when he had that vision, he went and said, hey, all of you other car manufacturers, this is what we've done to actually make Tesla work. And he open sourced a lot of the technology and a lot of the systems that he had. Why would you do that? Well, again, in macroeconomics, we all need each other. We depend on each other, even rivals, even competitors. Why? Well, because they're competing for prices and sources of materials, specifically batteries, specifically, maybe for charging stations as something they can roll out. But if we just look at the basics here, Musk wanted all these other companies to start building up their electronic vehicle supplies so that the cost of his products for Tesla would drop. So I am a big fan of having diverse thought, having competing ideas, having other companies in the space, and to not have a scarcity mindset that, oh, I'm the only one that does this. On my own podcast, I have other coaches that do exactly what I do. I just released a podcast last week from Corey Carlson on my Balanced Growth show. He does exactly what I do for a different, space, and there is some overlap of clientele. But I love being able to talk to others about what's happening. Why? Because our voice is spread, and I might not be the best fit for one person, but Corey might, and Corey might not be the best fit for one potential clients, but I might be a good fit. So I think it's all helpful to have this abundance mindset. And as we grow, as we diversify our products and services, that we can help support each each other. Take that Elon Musk example of open sourcing a lot of systems and operations so that, again, his vision could be accomplished, and everyone wins.
Yeah, and Travis, in today's business climate and everything that's going on in America today, I'm curious to ask you about two things, both about consumer and business confidence, and what does it mean to you to run a business with confidence today in America?
You know, confidence, man, that is a great question. It's kind of a loaded question. Confidence is something that we develop personally. It's something that we as individuals either have or we don't. As business owners, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this kind of inbred. We're type A, we're drivers. We're kind of almost born with confidence, although, psychology, nature versus nurture, it's somewhere in the middle. Okay. But that confidence that we have, a lot of times comes with a bunch of failure. I believe that business owners who haven't failed haven't really succeeded yet. If they've just been handed everything and they're the face of the company somehow, and they're hired to just look good, maybe that brings in investors. Maybe that helps them to bolster it. But most entrepreneurs I've interviewed, over 1,600 of them, they have been through failure after failure after failure. And I believe that their confidence doesn't just come from them, but I believe that their confidence comes so deep within that it's a spiritual thing, Kevin. I believe that confidence comes from their relationship with God. When my father passed away, I was confident knowing that I would see my father again. I have that belief, but I'm also confident that God is well pleased with my dad. And I want that. I want that relationship with God. There's an overwhelming statistic that the majority of entrepreneurs in America are faith-based. They have some form of faith, and that they are driving not just prosperity in this country, but they are also driving charity. Business owners, they contribute to nonprofit organizations like churches and 501c3s more than any other sector. Okay, and they do it voluntarily, not just for the tax break, but they do it a lot of times because they know that they have not been self-made. There's no such thing as a self-made business owner. We are all standing on shoulders of giants, and we all have God to thank. So I believe personally, for me, my confidence comes in my relationship with God. And I have also, again, seen this with other business owners, and not just, the ones who are outright faith-based, but the ones who do inside believe in God, and maybe don't show it as much as others. They know that their confidence is in how well they think that relationship is with their own maker.
Yeah, and bear with me for just a second, because I have a question with some statistical anecdotes that I want your opinion on. So, Travis, new research from the global cloud-based company and small business platform Xerox, but it revealed that a significant gap sort of lies when it comes to financial literacy and U.S. Small business owners, my friend. With the study found that 55% of small business owners rate their financial literacy as high, or half are also facing sort of financial challenges, right? So when we look at financial illiteracy and financial sort of challenges, and 15% of business owners also say that they're not yet recovered from financial sort of challenges within their business, my friend. And I'm curious, how do you think we can elevate the financial literacy of today's American small business owner? What are your thoughts there?
I think one of the biggest things that society struggles with right now in America is this idea that everything has to be taught in some kind of public educational system. Again, I already mentioned we homeschool our kids for a lot of reasons, but I've been to public school. I've been homeschooled. I've done online degrees, and my master's was an online degree. I've been through a private school, which was religious focused at Brigham Young University for my sociology degree, my bachelor's degree. And I've been to a state university here, Utah State, for my PhD. I've literally attended every sort of, educational opportunity out there. And at every level, people are always crying for more financial literacy at every level. But let's back up. Whose responsibility is that really? Whose responsibility is to teach financial literacy? I think what the statistics are reflecting is that the family is not teaching this anymore. My parents taught me how to balance a checkbook. They taught me how to give to my church. We called it tithing, right? The Bible calls it tithing. We gave 10%. I would save half of what's left over, and I'd live on the other half when I was a little kid, which I didn't need to have much, right? But my parents, they struggled with, do we pay allowance or do we not pay allowance? Do we pay them for extra chores? What do we do? And, as they taught me about money, or as they maybe didn't teach me about money, I had to learn some things on my own. One of the number one things that I see with business owners is when it comes to, again, their growth of their business, a lot of times it comes back to what they understand about money. What's their relationship with money? So I start there. I start with the psychological aspects. And I think families, parents, should be teaching their kids that money is not evil. The love of money is the root of all evil, according to the Bible. That money isn't some dirty thing, even though Peter calls it filthy lucre. He was calling it filthy lucre because a gentleman was trying to take the authority given to Christ's church and sell it. He's saying, don't use it for filthy lucre's sake, or in other words, to try and make money by selling your authority. It's not possible. You can't do that. So we have all these psychological issues around money, and that relationship should be modeled really well with our parents. Should schools teach financial educational classes? Sure. I taught it at a high school level. I've taught it at a collegiate level at Texas State when I was there for several years teaching family finance. But sometimes it's a little too late. These kids that are already piling up debt like crazy in college, and they're expecting way more out of their degree. It'll pay them all this money back, and they graduate with all this debt, right? And that's a huge problem in the United States. But what if parents could teach them a better way? What if the way forward isn't always college? What if the way forward is a 2-year degree to become a mechanic? My older 2 children are very different. One just loves music and is self-teaching herself music. The other is wanting to go to college and get his PhD, like his dad. He's crazy. The other, my third child, he wants to be a car mechanic, and he's taking applied classes at a local college here as a 17-year-old, as a senior who's homeschooled and has the time to do it. He's got in our driveway a $300 broken down Jeep that he's restoring, and he's learning a ton. All of that said, again, I think we put too much emphasis on what education in the public sector is doing. That the responsibility really relies on parents. Now, where parents aren't teaching it, where there's single moms or no parents in the home and grandparents are raising them, should the government help out? Should there be resources available? Yeah, of course there should be to help support that family. But again, this idea that the business owners, the ones who are moving forward and are helping to drive and grow businesses, are struggling with their own finances is not a surprise. It's a psychological relationship. Then learning the correct techniques. Well, that's where everybody divides, Kevin, There are financial planners, there's CPAs, there's estate planning attorneys, there are insurance agents, and everybody has their own different way of looking at, well, what should you do with money now that you have it? And that is actually what I'm going to tackle in my third book. So I haven't made this announcement public anywhere, and I don't have a name for it just yet. But it's going to be around family and money and how parents can teach their kids about the psychological relationship they have with money, how they can teach them what I call the 10-10-80 plan, and how they can then utilize that money to learn about investing, about business, and how to be good stewards. Because at the end of the day, Kevin, all of these things that we're given, time, money, energy, abilities, or even disabilities, these are all gifts from God, in my opinion. These are all ways that we can learn. These are all things that, going through these challenges or blessings are things that God wants us to steward. He gives us these responsibilities so that we can become better people. And it's how we use those stewardships, how we utilize these gifts and talents or opportunities and challenges to become who God wants us to become.
Yeah, absolutely. And quickly, Travis, tell me about the Balanced Growth Show, my friend. I know your own podcast helps business owners grow their own businesses while also achieving balance, my friend. So tell me about the show, and the final question I have for you both is about your life and your legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so the Balanced Growth Show, we're on episode 210 now. As of today, I'm not sure when this recording is going to go live, but we've got over 200 episodes I interview a lot of financial professionals, CPAs, financial advisors, insurance agents, and then business owners in general, entrepreneurs from great, varied backgrounds, from insurance to social work and even therapy, all over the place, who've had various backgrounds and degrees and experience in business, and talk about what they struggle with. What it is that they're doing well with business. What are some things that have helped them? What are some steps, some frameworks? And definitely come, check out the show. You can find us at travisparry.com, Parry.com, or maketimeinstitute.com, and you can see that there's episodes there for the Balanced Growth Show. Please, definitely listen in. The other two things I give on those shows is actually free access as episodes of my books, both Achieving Balance and Marry and Grow Rich. I have done the audio of all those chapters and have uploaded them to my podcast. So, you can get those books at maketimeinstitute.com. The newest one, marryandgrowrichbook.com. So www.marryandgrowrichbook.com. It's available for $5. You can download it, or you can listen to it for free on the podcast if you can't afford the $5 download. It's there. You got to subscribe and listen to all the episodes. So I've really enjoyed this. It's a labor of love, and it's a long-term return. This is not something that you turn around and you're going to profit from it, super short-term. But I do believe this, that the networking, the interviews, Kevin, you and I have and others have, is really, really important. It's opened up a lot of opportunities with people that I never would have been able to meet and been able to share this message. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. And very quickly, my friend, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
The best way they can do that is go to maketimeinstitute.com. Has all the contact information, all of my books, the podcast. If they're interested in needing some help, maybe they do need some coaching right away, and they want to explore that, or some mentorship on either getting out of the workaholic trap, getting on the same page financially with your spouse, or helping to teach that next generation. Because quite honestly, you mentioned this earlier, Kevin, and I didn't address it, but what is legacy? What does that look like? Well, a lot of people think it's a financial thing, and not necessarily. While we, as business owners, we want to give back, we want to help that next generation. It's a stewardship. It's also teaching that next generation. How are we teaching them? And I just finished up a 10-week course that I taught to a bunch of teenagers here in town about legacy and about stewardship and about how to have a great relationship with money and to use that to honor God. And I believe that what we do and how we live is our legacy. And I want to leave a fantastic legacy to my children. And if I'm so blessed with a great successful business, leave that to them, or help pass on the knowledge and wisdom that I've gained from that, and so be it. Again, at the end of the day, the most important thing that I have, my most important priority in life is my relationship with God, my family, and my physical health, how I've used my body and talents and abilities to really accomplish my mission. So that's my legacy, my friend, and thank you for allowing me to be here and give this voice.
Well, I certainly appreciate your insights and perspectives, my friend. I think you're doing great work in the field of financial literacy, personal development, and everything in between, my friend. I've really enjoyed engaging in conversation with you, and I want to thank you for being here this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.